Welcome everyone to the People's House. Nice to have everybody here. At this time, we're going to ask for you to stand if you're able. We lost a great city employee last week, and we're going to have a moment of silence, and there'll be something on the screen to watch. It's Billy Tyler. These are all public works trucks that lined up after the funeral. It was pretty awesome to see the rigs and bucket trucks and all our public works guys. He was well thought of, not only in the city community, but he was a youth baseball coach for years and years, and just a wonderful asset to our community. So I thought we would share this with you. This was filmed by James H. Davis Funeral Home as we're going to the gravesite. Thank you. I'm going to call her over. At this time, I'll ask the City Clerk Beth Davis to please call the roll.
Commissioner Pam Smithwright.
Here.
Commissioner Larry Maglinger.
Here.
Mayor Tom Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Caslen.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Here.
Thank you. Now we'll have the invocation and the pledge, and by Commissioner Maglinger. Stand if you're able.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, we pray that we do our best, work together, and always make decisions that are best for our fellow citizens. We ask that you guide our meeting so that it is positive and productive. God bless Billy Tyler's family and our entire community. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is a proclamation we have for Rare Disease Day. Whereas there are approximately 7,000 rare diseases and conditions, each affecting fewer than 200,000 Americans in the United States, according to NIH. And whereas, while each of these diseases may affect small numbers of people, rare diseases as a group affect an estimated 25 to 30 million Americans. Whereas many rare diseases are serious and debilitating conditions that have significant impact on the lives of those affected. And whereas while there are more than 620 drugs and biologists have been approved for treatment over 1,000 rare diseases according to the Food and Drug Administration, 90% of rare diseases do not have an FDA-approved treatment. Whereas individuals and families affected by rare diseases often experience problems such as delays in obtaining an accurate diagnosis, difficulty finding a health care provider with expertise in their condition, and a lack of access to treatments for ancillary services. Whereas the residents of Owensboro, Kentucky are among those affected by rare diseases because nearly 1 in 10 Americans have rare diseases. Whereas 7-year-old King Nazir Gates passed away on February the 28th after a long battle with an extremely rare disease called SPTLC2/pediatric ALS. Now therefore, I, Thomas Hart Watson, Mayor of the City of Owensboro, do hereby proclaim February the 28th is Rare Disease Day in Owensboro in honor of King Nazir. And all those who are suffering or know someone that is suffering from a rare disease, and encourage all citizens to duly note this occasion. Sign and seal this 28th day of February 2023. So, gosh, take a shot at her name. Okay, I'm sorry. I'd like to present this proclamation to you if I could. And offer you a few moments at the mic to speak, if you would. State your name and address. All right, I guess this is called a grip and grin. You can grin at the camera. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lakia Nard. I reside here in Owensboro, Kentucky. I wrote something because my mind is all over the place. It is fairly new, like he did just pass away on the 28th. Thank you. This is a beautifully sad honor to receive. I cannot thank you enough, as well as the community, for the love and support, including those for coming out to the horse and carriage ride, even though it was cold. I am forever grateful. King Nasir gained his wings at the age of 7 at 7:04 p.m. on February 28th, on Rare Disease Day. From SPTLC2, he was producing too much fatty acid called serine long chain, falling under the pediatric ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. The young king motto was just keep smiling. He adapted to every situation with a beautiful smile, grace, and strength against all odds. King Nasir did what he wanted when he wanted, and I made sure he can do just that, whatever he wanted when he wanted. Yes, he was beyond spoiled. He was my forever baby, my forever angel. King Nasir's name means one who overcomes in victory, and in his honor, Melanin Children Matter, Inc., a nonprofit organization, will carry on his legacy on serving the childhood rare disease and autistic community. I promise to work effortlessly, finding resources and advocating with results. Our children will forever overcome in victory.
God bless, and thank you for your comments. The next item on the agenda is OMU update. Tim Lyons, General Manager.
Tim Lyons, General Manager of Owensboro Municipal Utilities, 2070 Tamarack Road, Owensboro, Kentucky. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. We've got two presentations tonight. This will be the first one. Just kind of going to give an overview of OMU. I'd like to begin by providing what's happening with OMU and kind of look at the items associated with the Elmer Smith Station, the Plan A demolition, and then kind of review our electric rate stabilization program. And then our second presentation, of course, will be the electric rate ordinance.
Can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
Yes, sir. Sorry. OMU has been serving our community for 122 years. I'd like to recognize our commission. Paul Martin, who's our chair. I'll let him raise his hand there. Tony Cecil, our vice chair. Dr. Tom Maddox, our secretary. Susie Lamar, and J.T. Fulkerson. I want to thank them for their service. In addition, Pat Pace is our attorney. I don't know if he's here tonight, but I'd like to recognize him also. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize our leadership team. As previously mentioned, I'm the general manager. Brad Houghton, who's our Director of Customer and Shared Services, is here with us. Lynn Holland, our Director of Finance and Accounting. Austin McLemore, our Director of Delivery. Chris Pointer, our Director of Telecommunications. And Russ Evans, Director of Production. In addition, also here this evening is Laura Chapman, our Manager of Planning, and Fitos Neofito, our Manager of Audits and Procurement, and Sonia Dixon, our Public Relations and Communications Manager. I'm sure you've heard it before, but we're truly local people providing local service. Our 160 employees are talented, knowledgeable, and dedicated. Each and every one is ready to serve this community 24 hours a day, 365 days out of the year. We are not OMU without our employees. Each person, whether it is in customer service, our water production, our delivery staff, accounting, or finance, they play a vital role in delivering quality, reliable services to this community. I think it should be noted, as this storm that we had this past week, when things are at their worst, our employees are at their best. Those red trucks were out there rolling, and they worked tirelessly 24 hours a day to ensure that our customers receive their electricity just as soon as they possibly could. Recently, we were recognized by the American Public Power Association when we earned our Diamond Level RP3 award. This is the highest level award that is given out by the American Public Power Association. It is issued to those who are providing outstanding power, safety, reliability, and quality overall services. APPA serves over 2,000 members, so we were very pleased in receiving this award. In addition, we are also proud to receive the American Waterworks Large Water Treatment Plant of the Year, recognizing our production facility out at the cabin plant. At OMU, we take customer service very seriously, as shown here. It is difficult for any utility to earn a 94% rating. Our satisfaction rating is based upon the results from our customer surveys conducted monthly by a third party, including in this rating our reliable cost and customer service experience. We're pleased and honored to have achieved these results. Looking ahead, first of all, we are very proud of our expansion of the cabin treatment plant. We expanded it from 10 million gallons per day to a 30 million gallon day plant. We were able to complete the $50 million project on time, on budget, and there were no safety incidents. And this was done during a pandemic and dealing with supply chain issues. We are now benefiting from the efficiencies of this updated and expanded facility. I just want to say that it was a total community project. Not only does this plant serve OMU, but it serves the water districts also. The Hillcrest service area, we have plans under development to improve the pressure in this area. We want to take this opportunity to thank the city for providing these ARPA funds of $2.5 million. We're looking at placing booster pump stations in the most strategic locations. We will be working with the golf course to minimize the impact to the individuals playing golf at the Hillcrest area or golf course. And we expect the results of this study to be completed by the end of April to move forward. Another business is our OMU FiberNet. As most of you know, it continues to grow. The statistics are up there. We're just over 3,500 customers now. And upon completion of our latest segment, the services will be available to approximately 80% of the OMU Electric Service Territory customers. I want to give you a brief update on the Elmer Smith Station and the Plant A demolition. Upon the decision to close Elmer Smith Station, a process began to determine the best course of action for the decommissioning of the facility and the property. Favorable scrap prices enabled OMU to economically demolish both Elmer Smith Station and the Plant A site. All the areas that are identified there in the red will be completely demolished, and everything will be left as either gravel or green space. Once again, Plant A, we're going through the same demolition process. In addition to that, the tanks, clarifiers, and buildings will be removed or mitigated. The decision to close the Elmer Smith Station was not an easy one. but we knew it was in the best interest of our customers. Increasing environmental and maintenance costs made it unfeasible to continue the operations. We're appreciative of the legacy of the plant and all the employees who maintain and operate Elmer Smith on behalf of this community. December 4th was a historic day. That's the day we imploded both the stacks. We're not going to view it, but you can go to that YouTube account there and watch it if you want to. Finally, we want to give you an update on our electric rate stabilization plan. Several factors were important in successfully executing our electric rate stabilization plan when we began this 5 years ago. First, the decision to shut down the Elmer Smith station was a key component. Development of a purchase power agreement with fixed cost has been very beneficial. Defeasance of our debt has greatly helped us, and continued cost containment has been the key drivers for the electric rate stabilization process. I know this is somewhat of a busy chart, but if you follow the blue line, you can see that in 2019, OMU was just below 15 cents per kilowatt hour for the average residential customer. That line has trended down and levelized since we successfully instituted this rate stabilization program. We were able to achieve this while other utilities were experiencing increases, and as you can see today, we are regionally competitive in this environment. Likewise, much of the same results associated with our average commercial customers. So at this point, I'm going to pause and ask if you have any questions or comments. If not, I'll take a brief break and we'll be back up here to go over the electric rate ordinance here in just a moment. So.
Thanks, Tim. Any questions from the dais? Mr. Glenn.
So, Tim, one question I've got with the former water site plus the main plant, Elmer Smith, how did you handle, were there any toxins or anything that we had to deal with before we could clear the site, or is it pretty toxic-free in terms of?
As far as the ash pond, we had to clean that up. We've completed that. We do have to monitor that for some time, however, but it's in good shape. As always with these old plants, there's asbestos that's inside of it, and we had to remediate that before we could begin the demolition of that. Other than that, everything appears to be in good shape right now.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Tim. Pardon me?
I don't know how this works. Can we get that question?
At the end of the meeting. Tim, are you finished?
I'm finished if there's no more questions.
Okay, adios. Okay, next item on the agenda, 5A, consider approval of the minutes dated February 21st, 2023. I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion, deletions, or additions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. I'd like for you to consider these board appointments. Owensboro Health Board of Directors appoints Suzanne Harris, to a 3-year term effective March 7, 2023. Bond Harbor Area Neighborhood Alliance appoint April Brown to a 2-year term effective March 7, 2023. Owensboro Davis County Board of Ethics appoint Russ Wilkie as a joint city-county appointment to a 3-year term expiring March 2, 2026. Owensboro Housing Authority Board appoint Deborah Philman to a 4-year term effective March 21st, 2023. And the Human Relations Commission appoint Jennifer Vogel to fill the remainder of an unexpired term which ends October the 19th. She replaces Nahid Maturza. I'll make a motion to approve these board appointments. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, ordinance, second reading, we have none. Item 7, first reading of ordinance, Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 7-2023, an ordinance amending section 26-82 of Article 4 of Chapter 26 of the Owensboro Municipal Code entitled Electric Utility, and approving and adopting rates for electric service furnished by the City Utility Commission of the City of Owensboro, Kentucky, introduced and publicly read on first reading the 7th day of March, 2023.
Thank you. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. State law requires that the Owensboro Board of Commissioners approve rates for electric service charged by the City Utility Commission, or best known locally as our friends at OMU. In accordance with that law, this is first reading of an ordinance setting a new electric rate for OMU. OMU General Manager Tim Lyons will return to the podium to introduce and begin their presentation.
Thank you once again. I would like to now take some time to discuss our proposal to adjust electric rates. Here's an overview of what we will be discussing this evening. The rate study was overseen by our cost of service team that was developed within-house at OMU. It was headed by Laura Chapman, who I introduced earlier. We worked with an outside consulting firm, GDS and Associates, represented here by Jake Thomas, who is here, and he has a portion of this presentation as we move forward. First, let me give you some background. It is important to maintain the financial stability of a utility by maintaining a debt coverage service ratio of 1 or greater, and the targeted days of cash on hand must be 200 days or plus. As I'm sure you understand, higher than anticipated inflation, combined with supply chain issues, continue to have increased our cost much more than what we'd expected. It is also critical that we recover our cost to serve our customers. As a reminder, our last rate adjustment was approved in 2019, and this measure will help us to continue our electric rate stabilization program. Each fall, we conduct a 5-year financial plan projecting performance results and potential impacts on rates and other financial metrics. And as you can see, we have the metrics identified in the term of the period. Our projections indicate a need for a base rate increase. Our projections at that time indicated that we needed an increase of 5.75% for fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, effective June 1 of 2023 and June 1 of 2024. As part of the overall stabilization plan, we projected a reduction in the energy cost adjustment, otherwise known as ECA, for fiscal year 24 and 25. In addition, our environmental control cost adjustment, the ECCA rates, are projected to continue in a downward trend. Projected overall customer rates were expected to have minimal impact to our customers. Our expense projections are based upon the current fixed price of our power purchase agreement, which will run through December of 2026. O&M and G&A expenses inflated at 5% or more per year in fiscal years 24 and 25. And we typically look at that as 3 to 5%, but as you know, with the supply chain issues and inflation, it had escalated somewhat greater than we had anticipated. ESS expenses continue to taper off following the decommissioning, and ESS and retail bond debt is maturing in fiscal years 26 and 27 respectively. We are not sufficiently recovering our costs due to higher anticipated inflation combined with the supply chain issues. It is important to maintain the financial stability of the utility by maintaining a debt coverage service ratio of 1 times or greater. That is required by our bond covenants, and a target of at least 200 days on cash on hand is also required. Just for an example, we have seen an increase in cost of transformers of over 300% with a 500% lead time. 100% increase in the amount of cost of copper wire, 80% increase in cost of conductors. We have seen it, and the materials I just mentioned are heavily involved in the electric industry, and for us to provide reliable service to our customers. Our retail electric revenue is projected to fall short of requirements under the current rates. If you look at the yellow line, if we keep things as is, it will stay at that level. With the proposed rate relief, revenue aligns with the requirements through fiscal year 2026. The selection of our next power supply option will drive another review of our rates at that time. So if you look at the line that's dotted, that is what our projection will be with the proposed rate adjustment. As I mentioned about our debt coverage service ratio, it is projected to drop off in fiscal year 2023 and continue to drop until our debt matures in fiscal year 2027. Establishing this as a primary driver for the need for our rate relief. Given the approval of rate relief, the metric will be restored to the levels within the proper metrics. As you can see, the dotted line, if we receive our rate adjustment, we will stay above the yellow line. If we don't, the blue bars will indicate where we will be if we are not able to receive that adjustment. Without rate relief, operating days cash on hand are projected to continue to decline, as the use of cash will continue to be necessary to satisfy our revenue requirements. Given such action, this metric will be restored to levels within an acceptable range, as is identified with the dotted lines. At this time, I would like to bring Jake Thomas with GDS and Associates up. They are the consulting group that performed our cost of service study.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. Thank you, everyone. I am Jake Thomas with GDS Associates. My address is 114 Sierra Circle, Woodstock, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. So thank you for having me tonight. I'm just going to go through a few slides to give you kind of from the consultant's perspective, the study that we've gone through. It's a pretty extensive process that we worked through to establish these rate recommendations. And so an overall rate study process has 3 major steps, and it's really kind of a cycle. And in the first step, we determine what we call the utilities revenue requirements, which is just in total, how much revenue do we need, regardless of how we collect that revenue from ratepayers. And as Tim has already alluded to, that's really driven by our debt service coverage or our cash needs, which are important financial metrics that we'll talk about again in a minute. The next step is a cost of service study. And in a cost of service study, what you're really trying to understand is what does it cost to serve each of our different electric utility customer types? Because a residence uses electricity a lot differently than a large industrial customer might. And how that electricity gets used drives the cost that we incur to serve those customers. And so the cost of service helps us understand which classes of customers are either recovering cost of service through present rates or maybe not recovering full cost of service. Once we have those 2 pieces in place, we can move to the rate design phase, where we then figure out, okay, what are we going to charge each of the customer classes, and what form is that rate structure going to take? Is it going to be with monthly fixed charges or with energy charges? And so that's kind of the last step. And then once those get approved, you would implement the rates. And at the time that you need to do another rate study, you'd start the process over. So we've worked through that process with the OMU cost of service team over the last several months. And like I said, it's been a pretty good journey. So again, going back to the first step, which is the overall revenue requirements, and we've already hit on these metrics a couple times. So we built out a financial forecast model that looks at the projected operating costs, projected revenues under present rates, and determines whether or not there's a shortage with respect to debt service coverage or days cash on hand. And if there is, then the model calls for a rate increase and how much to meet those metrics. Just to reiterate, the debt service coverage ratio is a level that's really helps us determine whether or not we can pay our principal and interest on the bonds that we have outstanding. And there's a minimum level that's required in the bond covenant, and that's a 1.0. And so that's kind of the minimum that our model looks at, but we target a 1.25 so that there's a little bit of headspace in case something doesn't materialize the way we've projected. The other big metric is days cash on hand, and it's really just a measure of how much cash you have to cover your operating expenses. So if you had no additional cash as a utility, how long could you operate on that cash balance before you ran out of money? And there, our minimum is 150 days with a target of 200 days. And that's important with respect to when we're trying to get our credit rating through rating agencies like S&P or Moody's. They're going to look at our cash levels, and our rating is going to be better the more cash we have on hand to help cover unexpected events like a storm that we had recently. Now, in talking about inflation, I just wanted to help set the stage and help everybody realize that this is not an Owensboro specific thing. This is not even a Kentucky thing. This is a national thing. And utilities throughout the nation are struggling with this. And so what I have here on the screen on the left-hand side, the graph is the average retail price of electricity for the United States. And so this comes directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and CPI data. And what you can see there is that from December of 21 to December of 22, the year-over-year increase was 14.3% nationwide. So utilities nationwide, on average, had raised rates 14% in 1 year. In the Southeast region, it's 15.7%. So the Southeast has had a little bit higher of an increase relative to the nation as a whole. Tim kind of already alluded to some of those things that are driving it. There can be wholesale power costs, which is not as necessary here because we have a power contract in place. But cost of materials, supply chain supply chain issues, interest rate increases, and labor cost increases are all contributing to these. And to help give us some context here locally, some of the major investor-owned utilities in the state, Duke in December, just asked for an 18% rate increase that they filed with the State Commission. Kentucky Power had a 12% increase approved in 2021, and LG&E and KU both had 6 to 7% increases approved also in 2021. So just to help give us all an appreciation that this is something the entire industry is struggling with. Now, specific to Owensboro, again, what we show here is that the base rate increase, there's really kind of three major parts to a customer's bill. There's the base rates, then there's the ECA and the ECCA factors. And so our model calls for 2 base rate increases each in fiscal year 24 and 25 of 5.75%. But the ECA and ECCA components of those bills are going to decrease, based on our projections, by a little over 5% in 24 and just under 5% in 2025. So the net impact on customers' bills on average is less than a 1% overall rate increase in each of those 2 years,
Sir,
0.7%.
Could you explain the ECA/ECCA?
Sure. The ECA is the Energy Cost Adjustment Factor, and so it's related to your power supply costs, and it's a factor that's on the bill on a per kilowatt hour basis. And then the ECCA is the Environmental Cost Compliance Adjustment Factor, so it's related to having to comply with environmental factors. And so both those costs are projected to decrease over the next couple of years to help offset these base rate increases that we're recommending. Sure. Okay, so that covers the overall revenue requirements. Moving into the cost of service phase. And I will not spend a long time on the process here, but the cost of service itself is also kind of a 3-step process. And what we go through, it's really a big accounting exercise. We take all of the utilities' common costs, and we start by doing what's called functionalizing those costs. So we put them into different buckets based on the function. If it's a production function, in other words, generating electricity, or a transmission function, the distribution function, or it could be, customer service or general administrative. Once all the costs are functionalized, we then do a step where we classify those costs. And one thing to keep in mind is as we go through each step, the total costs are not changing, so the total dollar amount stays the same. We're just defining it into further and further breakdowns, more fine kind of analysis. And the classification step, we look at whether it's driven by the number of customers on the system, so that could be like just setting a meter. As soon as you have someone sign up for service, you have to have a meter and a service drop, whether they use a kilowatt hour of energy or not. And so that's a customer-driven cost. There's also demand, how much is placed on the system at a certain time, or total energy, how much is used over time. Once we break those down using kind of industry standard methods, you can then allocate to the various classes to figure out how much does it cost to serve a residential customer versus an industrial customer. So we went through all those steps, and a couple of the outputs from that analysis, one that's of interest with respect to rate design, is that on the left-hand side of the pie chart here is how you collect your revenues right now through your present rates. And so what you can see is that 83% of our revenue comes from energy-based charges, the black pie on the left. But on the right-hand side, the cost of service shows that really only 42% of our costs are energy-related. And in fact, more than 50% of our costs are what we would call largely fixed costs. They're driven by either demand or the number of customers. So we're recovering a lot of our fixed costs through variable energy charges right now. When we get to rate design, what that would indicate as a cost of service or a rate expert is that I would recommend when we do a rate increase, we try to do more of the increase in the fixed parts of the bill to better align these, because what we really want to do is we really want to have prices that flow from how the costs are derived so that we're, better aligning price signals. Yes, ma'am.
Could you give me an example of a demand-related expense?
Sure. A good example is the transformer. So the investment in a transformer, the size of the transformer is going to be driven by how much demand the local customer places on the system. So a very small single-phase service might only need a 35 or a 25 kVA transformer, whereas a very large industrial might need, a 1,000 MVA transfer or 1,000 kVA transformer. The cost associated with owning and operating that transformer goes up as it gets bigger. And it's based on local instantaneous demand.
Thank you.
Sure. Also, a lot of the cost through the power contract, where we purchase the power that we then sell, is also usually driven by demand. A lot of it is as well. Okay, so another outcome of the cost of service study. GDS is recommending an overall rate increase. We would recommend that all classes, regardless of the results of the cost of service, share in that rate increase. We think that that's just a fair approach. We then think that the amount of the increase should really be based on the cost of service recovery. And so on the left-hand side are the retail rate classes that right now are sufficiently recovering their cost of service. So they're doing well relative to cost of service. And so our recommendation would be less than a 1% increase for those customer classes. On the right-hand side are the ones that aren't quite recovering their full cost of service right now. And so those we would say we would recommend a little bit greater than 1%. And again, because of those pie charts that I had up a minute ago, the difference between demand and energy type costs, the recommendation is to focus most of the increases on the customer and demand charges in the rate. So getting to the rate itself, I have here the residential rate proposal on the screen, and then I'll touch base on the others, then Tim's going to come back up and give you more detail on these rate recommendations. But for the residential class, our proposal would, for a 900 kilowatt hour bill, would cause an increase of $1 per month on average in fiscal year, from present rate to fiscal year 24, and then another $1.43 from 24 to 25. So because the ECA and the ECCA are coming down, we are recommending a decent amount of the increase you can see there to go into that customer charge. So we have the single phase customer charge going from $15 a month to $16.50 and then to $18. But then that is offset by some of the energy components going down over time. So again, at a 900 kilowatt hour bill, it's a pretty modest increase. We're talking about $2 total per month for a 900 kilowatt hour bill after 2 years of increases, or $2.40. Also note that one of our proposals, this is kind of really getting down into the weeds, so I apologize for that, but feel it's important to bring it out here. We are also recommending that we shift some of the ECA cost recovery from the ECA into the base rates. And so you'll see on the slide that the base energy charge goes up from 684 cents per kilowatt hour up to 9560. And at the same time, the ECA goes from 4.3 down to 1.69. And so that shifting has no impact on the total bill, but what we're doing is resetting the base in the piece in the ECA, the energy cost adjustment factor. And then briefly for all the other classes, the commercial has the same rate as the residential rate, and you can see there it's 0.2% and 0.3% increase per year. The schools are actually already on a transition plan, so we're not recommending any change for that. The schools would be on the full commercial rates by fiscal year 2025. So GSS stands for General Service Secondary, and then GSP is General Service Primary. So these are kind of all of the larger commercial classes. You can see there the increases that we're recommending. Excuse me. And that, again, is primarily going to be focused in on the customer charges and the demand charges on those rates. The GSS B class is one that the cost of service, they're not performing quite as well. So that's why they're getting a little bit more of an increase in this recommendation relative to the other two. The water department would see an increase of about 0.4% in 24 and then 0.7 in 25. And then the security lighting group, we actually have a couple of recommendations there. We're actually recommending they reclassify or regroup how the lights are made available to help with ease of administration. And then it's an average increase of $2.65 per fixture per month in each year. And so that is the conclusion of kind of the overview of the study that we've gone through with the team. And Tim's going to come back up. Unless there's any questions for me now,
Any questions
I'll
from
be
the
around.
dais? No, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
If you think of any, we can bring him right back up. So as previously mentioned, our last base rate adjustment was approved in 2019. The ECA rate has remained unchanged while the ECCA rate continues to be reduced. As you saw in our projections, which were confirmed by GDS and Associates, our need for a base rate relief was identified as 5.75% in fiscal year 2024 and 2025, effective June 1 of 2023 and June 1 of 2024. In addition, a portion of the power supply and transmission costs will be moved into the base rate of 2.46 cents per kilowatt hour from 1.54 cents to a total of 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And once again, this will have no impact to the overall customer rate as the ECA rate simultaneously will decrease. Furthermore, we're providing further reductions of the ECA rate in both fiscal year 24 and 25 with an average decrease of 0.7 and 0.9%. And the resulting overall average increase will be in two steps of, I should have said 0.7 and 0.9 over the 2-year period. So 0.7 to the average customer in year 1 and 0.9% in year 2.
Tim, could I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
That rate increase 5.75
Yes.
in 2024, and then it's another 5.75 in 2025
In the base rate.
in the base rate.
But it's correspondingly offset by the, let me go back to this one slide that pretty much shows it. So if you look at that, Mayor Watson, there's a 5.75% increase in fiscal year 24, but it's correspondingly offset by a 5% decrease in the ECA and ECCA rates for a total of just under 0.7%.
Okay, thank you. I just kind of,
Yeah.
a lot of information, just trying to get it straight.
Sure. The yellow line represents the average residential rate in fiscal year 2019. It was just under 15 cents per kilowatt hour, emphasizing that our rates have declined in this period. Rate action in 2019 resulted in a significant cost savings for our customers over the past 4 years. While we continue to project declining overall rates throughout this forecast period, this better illustrates as it breaks out into the components that we've just mentioned. The overall rate decrease in all years, but the projected components of the residential rate are as follows. The base rates in green. It is increasing in fiscal year 24 and 25, including a shift of the 2.46 cents that we've previously mentioned. The ECA, which is the blue bars, is decreasing in fiscal year 24 and 25 by 0.015 cents per kilowatt hour each year, plus the shift. And the ECCA red bars are declining in all years as we vacate the Elmer Smith station. So here's where we kind of get into what the average residential monthly bill will be. As we have stated, the average residential bill will increase from $118.36 to $120.79 in two-step period over the 2-year period. And the average commercial bill will as follows. The GSSA rate is one of our commercial rates, and it has a demand component associated with it. I think Commissioner Smith mentioned that she wanted to know exactly what that dealt with, and so the larger customers, they're charged also a demand rate. It's a 15-minute interval for the 24-hour for the month. So the highest 15-minute peak in that month, they're assessed that charge, and it's to make sure we have the proper capacity available there. So this is much more difficult to say there's an average rate, so we wanted to give you a low, an average, and a high. I will say that most of the customers in this rate were sufficiently recovering their costs. The GSSB rate is another rate which has the demand component, and as you can see that it kind of goes in the same process as all, but once again it's difficult to compare. We gave you an average, low, and high. The GSP rate is for our industrial customers. They're primarily our larger customers, and once again we give a low, average, and high of what that average customer or what that would look like, based upon the load factor and their demand. Lights, as we mentioned, we have severely been under recovering for our lights for some time. These rates have not been adjusted since 2015. The proposed rates more closely reflect our cost recovery, and the overall average increase is $2.65 per month per year over the next 2 years. Mayor Watson, I think this may help with what each one of those components are. So the base rate has 3 components to it. Now, it has a customer charge and energy charge, and that's just really for the residential and commercial customers. However, it does have a demand charge for the GSSA, GSSB, and GSP customers. The base rate, as identified there, that's what we're trying to recover. Elmer Smith operations, our T&D system, debt on the debt expenses associated with ESS. So that's a lot of that's many of the components that goes into the base rate recovery. As far as the ECA, primarily power supply costs and transmission costs, and then the ECCA rate covers the cost associated with our environmental controls. In the draft ordinance, we did want to show that the customer charges, as they correspondingly increase in each one of the classifications each year over year. And then we wanted to show the residential, the energy rates. I want to show that this shows that the impact of the 2-step energy rate charges increase. This is another component of the base rate. I also want to make sure that everybody in the case that this knows that this shifts 2.46 cents of kilowatt hours from the ECA to the base rate. That's why you see the jump, but it's correspondingly offset in the ECA rate. While we come to the commission requesting for these rate increases, there are some adjustments we need to be making to our ordinance. We would like to add a residential sub-metering rider. This will allow OMU to provide electricity to new residential buildings. These are primarily apartment, high-rise type complexes, 3 floors or greater, and with a total of 10 units. This will allow individual metering to be done on a sub-metering basis. Agreements will be in place before we can move forward with these, but we believe it'll be beneficial as we have those types of developments in downtown. The next rate ordinance is the electric vehicle charging station rate. Of course, we're starting to see EV charging stations popping up within the city. We want to create a rate for a level 3 electric charging station or sites with more than 1 level 2 commercial charging stations on a single meter. A level 3 charging station is one that can charge a vehicle battery in about 30 minutes, and it requires a significant amount of electric infrastructure to be able to perform that function. In addition, multiple level 2 charging stations on a single meter point may also require a significant electrical infrastructure increases. So we need to have a special rate for that. We also want to add a renewable generation meter service rider. This is for new renewable generation installations that are connected to our system effective June 1 of this year. Customers will be credited the avoided cost, or essentially the ECA rate, for excess generation that they're providing back on the OMU system. This will eliminate the netting of energy that occurs under the net energy metering rate. As we mentioned, the net energy metering rate, we want to modify that. We want to establish an end date on that as well. So any current customer that currently has the net energy metering rate will receive this rate for the next 15 years, or upon modifications or disconnection of their existing distributed generation system. So we'll leave that rate in place. If there's any modifications, they'll move to the new rate that we're providing here, the Renewable Generation Metering Service Rider. And after 15 years, they'll be moved over to that service as we move forward. And finally, we want to eliminate the Green Energy Service Rider. OMU's current purchase power agreement does not provide an option to acquire green energy. And since this rider has been in effect since 2015, no customer has inquired about it or signed up for it. Therefore, in conclusion, we're proposing a base rate increase of 5 3/4% in fiscal year 24 and 25, effective June 1, 2023 and June 1, 2024. We want to shift power supply cost into the base rate of 2.46 cents per kilowatt hour from 1.54 cents to 4 cents per kilowatt hour effective June 1, 2023. ECA and ECCA rates will decrease, partially offsetting the base rate increase. Our overall customer increase will be just under 0.7% in fiscal year 24 and 0.9% in fiscal 25. And finally, the average residential monthly bill will increase $2.43 over this 2-year period. That concludes my presentation. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Tim. Any questions from the dais?
I have one.
Commissioner Castleton, please.
Yes, sir.
Tim, you mentioned the ECA and the ECCA rates
Yes.
Decreasing.
Yes.
Now, is there any chance that those are regulated by the government, correct?
The ECA and the ECCA rate can be approved by the OMU Commission.
Okay. Okay, so it's not likely that there could suddenly be a change to where they would not go down.
We have a
as
policy
projected.
as to what can flow through those rates, and we would have to adjust that policy, and it's really just associated with on the ECA power supply. Oh, let's go back here. Power supply, our transmission cost, any of the decommissioning regulatory asset amortization, and of course wholesale, we're out of that business now. So.
Okay.
And then the ECA is just the environmental piece, and as I say, with the shutdown of Elmer Smith, we will have some ongoing costs but it continues to decrease.
Okay. So you don't see any time in the future that those rates would go up in any way?
We believe the ECA will remain stable up through 2026, but now, of course, when our power supply options change in 2026, 2027, we'll have to do a full rate analysis at that time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Commissioner Glenn.
Commissioner Glenn?
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Currently, what is our energy formula? Like, where do we get our energy from? How much is coal? How much is natural gas, et cetera?
Yeah.
How's that
We
break down?
we currently have a contract with Big Rivers Electric to provide about 175 megawatts of our capacity and energy. They have made a transition to some natural gas. I do not know the exact percentages, but there's natural gas and coal fire in their portfolio now. Of course, we have 25 megawatts from SEPA, which is all 100% hydro.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Maglinger?
When did you say the rate will change, or when's it up where we start buying power? I mean, we had a contract to buy
We have a
power.
contract till December 31st of 2026.
Okay, and then you renegotiate.
We will have to go back out on the open market and go through our procurement process.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you and appreciate those big red trucks.
Thank y'all.
I mean,
And
who would
thank-
get in a bucket in an electrical storm and work with electricity? Raise your hand. Not me. We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank all of y'all for your service to this community. Thank you.
Are we on 7B? Okay, item 7B on the agenda, Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 8-2023, an ordinance establishing the compensation of city employees and non-elected city officers in accordance with the Personnel and Pay Classification Plan as required by KRS 83A.070 and adopting the revised pay grade and range structures. Introduced and publicly read on first reading the 7th day of March 2023.
Thank you. City Manager, please discuss.
I'm happy to, Mayor. Thank you. As we've discussed on various occasions in the past, the city conducted a compensation study over the last several months. The Board of Commissioners was provided a thorough briefing on the results of the study at our February work session. And following that presentation, Human Resources Manager Josh Bachmeyer and I conducted a series of employee meetings to explain the study and the results to our employees. In summary, the study evaluated city wages compared to similar employers. In addition, all city positions were evaluated and scored based on the responsibilities of each position. Using this information, new pay charts have been developed. State law requires all cities to adopt their compensation plans by ordinance. As a result, this is first reading of an ordinance adopting new pay charts that were developed as part of the compensation study. If approved following second reading, the new charts will be effective on June 1st, which will allow staff adequate time to migrate all employees to the new charts and get everything implemented in our financial systems.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Okay, item 7C, please, Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 9-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 16, Article 11, Section 16-278 of the Owensboro Municipal Code to allow for smoking in certain limited public places where air purification technology is utilized in segregated areas. Introduced and publicly read on first reading the 7th day of March 2023.
Thank you. City Manager.
Excuse me. In March of last year, it was announced that Ellis Entertainment would renovate the former J.C. Penney location at Town Square Mall for a facility offering historic horse racing machines. As was subsequently announced, ownership of the project was acquired by Churchill Downs. During their development of the project, Churchill officials contacted the city and expressed concern about a potential negative impact the city's smoking ban would have on their project. Churchill explained that they believe the ability to smoke at the facility is integral to its success. In discussions about the issue, the Board of Commissioners seemed open to their request. As a result, staff began negotiating with Churchill Downs about potential changes to the smoking ordinance, and this item for your consideration is the result of those discussions. This is first reading of an ordinance amending existing city smoking ordinance to allow smoking in a limited scale for projects meeting various criteria. The criteria include the following. The project or site must have at least 50,000 square foot of space and represent a capital investment of at least $30 million. Smoking would only be allowed in a limited portion of the space, which is not to exceed 15% of the total space accessible to the public. Smoking area must be partitioned with a full wall and a vestibule or double doors between the smoking and non-smoking areas. Additionally, a separate air purification system is required. And finally, the location must not allow patrons under the age of 18.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, item 8A, please. Municipal orders.
Municipal Order 13-2023, A municipal order declaring the property located at 1602 East 18th Street as surplus property and authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate purchase agreement and deed conveying the property. Read for approval on one reading the 7th day of March, 2023.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve this municipal order. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? City manager?
Yes, Mayor, this municipal order declares surplus and authorizes the transfer of property at 1602 East 18th Street. The property was acquired in the past for improvements to Bluff Avenue, and you can see in the screen there, the parcel in red is what we're discussing, and it's at the corner of Bluff and 18th, and in the past, that Bluff Avenue side was widened, and so the property there in red was acquired for that project. So the project is complete, and the reason the property was acquired has been fulfilled, so the city made the remaining property available for bid. L&S Homes, who owns the contiguous or adjoining property to the south, submitted a bid, and so the property would transfer to L&S Homes, who owns the property to the south, if approved.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the dais? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 8B, please, Ms. Davis.
Municipal Order 14-2023, a municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute a deed conveying property located at 200 Williamsburg Square to Regional Water Resource Agency, RWRA, on which RWRA has built a publicly owned pump station for its operations. Read for approval on one reading the 7th day of March, 2023.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve this. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City manager?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Essentially, all of RWRA's properties are owned and titled to RWRA, which makes sense because the utility owns, operates, and insures their infrastructure. However, we're working on a grant application. RWRA came across a pump station at Williamsburg Square that was still in the city's name. If you remember, in past decades, all of their infrastructure was owned by the city, and over the years, it's all migrated to RWRA. So this municipal order resolves the ownership issue for the property by transferring it to RWRA. You can see it's a tiny property in the corner here. It's kind of hard to see on this map, but it's, I think, 0.02 acres, if I remember correctly, so 207 acres. And it essentially houses a pump station west of Owensboro Christian Church.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Well, I just had a clarification, if I may ask. So is the pond that's behind it part of this land transfer?
Unfortunately, it is not. I would love to give that to someone, but Commissioner,
that's
that will
kinda
remain
how
our
I felt.
responsibility.
Yeah, we could hand that pond off.
There's a
I'd be glad
pump
to.
station on the corner of that property that
Okay,
we're
it was
deeding
just
to them.
land, okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. No other questions. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 8C, Ms. Davis.
Municipal Order 15-2023, a municipal order authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a First Amendment to agreement between the City of Owensboro and Ellis Entertainment, LLC, by which the company shall meet certain payroll requirements in order to earn the incentive provided for in the parties' agreement dated April 20, 2022. Read for approval on one reading the 7th day of March, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City manager?
In April of last year, the Board of Commissioners approved an incentive agreement for the historic horse racing facility plan for the former J.C. Penney location at the mall. The incentive provided a 5-year, 50% general fund occupational tax rebate to the company. As shared earlier in the meeting, we had negotiations with the company about smoking, and during the negotiations, we also reconsidered and opened up the incentive agreement as well. This municipal order approves an amendment to the incentive agreement by inserting a required payroll amount for the first several years in which the historic horse racing facility will operate. If the aggregate payroll provided to employees of the facility failed to meet the required amount, the company would forfeit or lose their incentive for the year. We did this to help ensure the project has a sizable employment and economic impact in our community.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Yes, so is it not Churchill Entertainment? It's still Ellis?
I believe that Churchill purchased Ellis Entertainment LLC, so it's still operating under the Ellis name, but it's owned by Churchill at this point. Now, I think that will subject to change whenever the facility opens. I'm sure we'll have a different name, probably not Ellis, but at least now from a legal perspective, I think they're still operating under the LLC that they acquired from the previous ownership of Ellis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, city manager items.
Thank you. Today, we have 4 personnel appointments for your consideration. Nicholas Flake and Jonathan Pearl, regular, full-time, non-civil service appointments to officer with the police department effective March 13th. Rachel Frederick, regular, full-time, non-civil service appointment to firefighter with the fire department effective March 13th. And Curtis Johnson, regular, full-time, non-civil service appointment to firefighter with the fire department effective March 27th.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve these personnel appointments. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any other discussion? Curtis is all retired once, hasn't he? He's coming back.
That is correct.
Cool.
Officer Friend.
Oh, that's his dad. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9B, city manager comments.
Just one comment tonight, Mayor. It's been publicized, but we wanted to do our part as well. But there is a meeting for the community to view the new flood insurance rate maps, or what were generally called the floodplain maps. That meeting is a week from tonight on March 14th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Blandford Hall on the campus of Owensboro Community and Technical College. We'll be advertising that on our social media. I know the county and the state and other folks are as well, but we want to make sure the public is well advertised because, as you comment often, those are rather impactful in our community.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find what's not in the floodplain, to be honest with you. Okay, communication from elected officials. Commissioner Smith-Wright, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to let the public know that on March the 23rd, there will be a Tuskegee Airmen Commemoration Day at the airport. My cousin was a Tuskegee Airman, and there's a display at the airport in his honor. And then they've also named that road, or there's a sign on the road to the airport called Second Lieutenant Milton Hall, Tuskegee Airman. And so anyway, we're going to have a little program at 11 o'clock, and the public is invited, and this is sponsored by the Owensboro-Davis County Veterans Organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Maglaner,
Thank you, Mayor.
you're welcome.
I want to thank OMU and Kenergy for all the hard work that they did during the storm. Also, a lot of city personnel from our first responders, police, fire, public works. There was a lot of people involved in cleaning up the mess and trying to get people's power back on. So, I mean, we're really fortunate to be in a community that has this kind of service. Also, I had a chance to, and a lot of people might have seen the TV special that was on KET for our Owensboro Symphony called The Night at the Oscars. And man, was that impressive. We've got a great orchestra. So anytime you can support it, I mean, it was incredible. TV special. I don't know if you can go back and see it on KET, but it was.
You get one of your grandkids to show you how.
No, I don't know. I don't know if it's like DirecTV on demand or what. But anyway, it was great to see that. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, Matt Caslin.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the leadership Owensboro class of 2022 for the Moneta Sleep Festival that they put on this past week. I wasn't able to make it. I had an out-of-town appointment that I had to go to for down to Florida, but especially yeah, it was pretty nice. But
Appointment at the beach?
yes,
Okay.
but anyway, I'd already made plans for that, so I didn't get to make the Moneta Sleep Festival, and I was sorry that I didn't. But anybody I talked to said it was nothing short of first class, and it was very impressive, and especially wanted to thank Emmy Woolsey and Drew Hardesty for all of their hard work on this festival. And it's really important for our community to acknowledge all that Mr. Sleet has done throughout, to preserve history with his camera. And also, I happened to be passing by Moneta Sleep Park yesterday, and saw that they had started on the gazebo foundation, and there's new basketball courts coming there in the future also. So we have a lot going on here in the community that's positive, and just wanted to point a couple of those out to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Glenn.
Yes, a couple of things I wanted to echo Commissioner Maglinger on the great work of OMU and our public works folks in the wake of the storm. They've been out doing a great work, in some cases under dangerous circumstances. Really want to just say in general, Public Works does so much great work every day, and they don't get much acknowledgement. They clear the snow when we have inclement weather. They empty our trash. They clear limbs. They do incredible work. So if you see a Public Works employee out in the next week and you have a chance, thank them for what they do. Billy Tyler was just an amazing individual. I didn't meet one person who knew him or interact with him who didn't think he was just an incredible employee and a wonderful person. And but all of our Public Works people do incredible work. They all deserve a pat on the back, so be sure to extend that. The second is there's some good news. I don't know whether you heard about it, but the state and the county have agreed that they will expand voting access. And so the Sports Center, as well as the Neblett Center on the west side of town, will be voting centers for future elections. And so I think that's really good news for our community, because we all think everybody who has the right to vote should be able to vote. And then the final thing I wanted to touch on is hotels, motels in our convention center are doing box office record-setting business, and that's great for our community. And so kudos to the hotel and motel folks as well as their convention center operators. I would just say that I think we're doing a great job. The Symphony, was the only person that went to the Symphony airing of the program that was mentioned, the video of their Oscar show. It was amazing. It was absolutely wonderful. It couldn't do anything but put our community in a great light. And congratulations to Troy Quinn and the orchestra for just continued wonderful work across the years. And that's it.
Okay, next item on the agenda is open public forum. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Commission on any matter of public concern that was not on tonight's agenda. Comments are limited to issues within the scope and responsibility of this commission. Commission meetings are held to conduct city business for the benefit of Owensboro citizens. At this time, anyone who wishes to address the City Commission, please make their way to the podium to be recognized. Speakers must state their name and address for the clerk's record and limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Since the item is not on the agenda, no response is required from city staff or the commission. And I would ask, when we have everybody in this group is probably on the same side, so if you could kind of get a couple of people to speak for all of you to kind of help us a little bit. So,
and that's why I'm here. I will speak for a lot of people that are in this audience. My name is Catherine Crow. I reside at 3301 Spring Ridge Parkway. I have before me a petition that I want to present to you all. It's undersigned of 1,685 citizens of the community. Respectfully request the board of the River Park Center to cease all future endeavors, including drag queen shows and any other such event that's being planned at the River Park Center or Ghost Light Lounge. Failing that, we further request the Owensboro City Commission and Davis County Commission withhold all future funding of the River Park until these drag queen shows desist. The River Park Center and the Ghost Light Lounge lease a building that is owned by the city of Owensboro, meaning that the citizens of Owensboro. Further, the River Park Center relies upon the city and county grants, our tax dollars, to keep the doors open. We reject the progressive gender ideology behind these drag queen shows, as well as the attempts to access, groom, and isolate our children. So that's what's in the petition, but what I would like to add to that is we are not a hate group, and we do not object to drag queen shows. They're welcome to have them. We just don't want them to be in a public access where our children are going to be, which is at the River Park Center attending those kind of events, and also the Owensboro Symphony. There's all kind of events that take place. I'm so proud of the River Park Center. I'm proud of what we've done with downtown Owensboro. So I really hate to see this happen. I want to see River Park Center continue to grow and prosper, and perhaps we can work on ways to bring in funding for them, but put these shows somewhere else where it's not in light for our children to see. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Jerry Chapman, 2601 Elwood Court, Chairman of Davis County Citizens for Decency. Approximately 2 weeks ago, this body publicly pledged support with our tax dollars an organization that has chosen their gender ideology agenda over the responsibility to the community that they exist to serve. Instead of respecting the community he was brought here to serve, Mr. Jorn and his board have pushed an extreme agenda and gotten away with it in part by dismissing those of us who disagree as a small group of non-like-minded people. That was the basis for his dismissal of our initial letter, one several of you have repeated. That letter was signed by 44 people in all. 33 pastors representing their churches, shepherds in our community. They were joined by 11 community and elected leaders. Today, that total number stands at 59, with the addition of 14 more churches and their pastors. We represent churches of all denominations from across this community. As we continue to share news of your defiance, that number will continue to grow. We are not and never have been a small group. I would take a very close look at the signatures in that petition. You're going to recognize a lot of names. Most of them voted for you. Some of them probably helped you get elected. We've made no false claims, as you and Mr. Jorn insist. Every assertion Citizens for Decency has made was brought to us by eyewitnesses. And I'll make one more tonight. It appears Mr. Jorn and the River Park Board of Directors have shirked their fiduciary responsibilities. By all accounts, the Ghostlight Lounge is losing money. Sound business practice should have dictated its closure months ago, but apparently they've placed this gender ideology agenda ahead of their fiscal responsibility to you and by proxy to us. We've requested the financial records, but as yet have not received them. I'd suggest you do the same. You and they keep citing their First Amendment rights, but no one has a First Amendment right to obscenity. Obscenity is not protected by the First Amendment. That's according to the United States Supreme Court. Obscenity is defined by answering 3 questions. I'll close with this, then, please. 18 states have taken legislative action to stop what's going on at the River Park. Why do you all not see that?
My name is Terry Model. My address is 1731 McCulloch Avenue here in Owensboro. I'm the pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church here in Owensboro, and I know that I speak obviously for the first 2 folks that were up here, as well as many people that are present here tonight, and also for the sake of morality within our community. And I say ditto to what they said, with the exception of, as Christians, we do oppose drag queen shows being held anywhere, but certainly in our own community. And I've heard stories already of some of the drag queen folks that are there are coming in contact with some of the young children that are down on the playground and come up to that area, or if young children are having their own event within the River Park Center at the time that the drag queen shows are going on, they use the same facility, the same restrooms, so on and so forth. And as a Christian, as a born-again Christian, and as a follower of the Word of the Lord Jesus Christ, I stand here representing God, representing the Lord Jesus Christ, representing the people of this community, and for the sake of morality, we pray that everything will be done to stop funding, whether it be private funding or public funding, for such things to enter into our community to demoralize our young people. I believe the reason that we have the problems that we have in America today starts right in our own hometowns. And it's happening here now in Owensboro, Kentucky. And all we can do is pray and ask that the good people that make decisions for our community will stand up for what's moral, what's decent, and what's right, representing morality, representing decency, and certainly representing our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, ma'am. Get closer to the thing so we can hear you, please. She's still going to let you talk. She just texted. Thank you, Abby.
That's okay. My name is Phoebe James, and I live at 1800 Parish Plaza Drive, Apartment E. The reason why I'm here, I have a son that was in a motorcycle accident on the corner of 4th and Ewan Road. And I would just wonder if there's anything that the city can do to keep people from turning from Ewan Road back onto 4th Street to cross over to Jed. As y'all can see, I don't know if y'all can see the pictures. Can I bring it to the? If we can just get a sign or something that we can just say no right turn, or, I mean, right now it just says one way.
Okay.
But right now, I mean, I don't know what else I can do to, I mean, because sometimes I would even stand there and say, no, don't turn that way, please don't, you know. And I'm just asking the city if they can just check and see.
We'll certainly evaluate that, I promise you.
All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
My name is Michael Hamlet. I live at 6160 Sutter Loop West, and I'm here to speak out against the drag shows at the River Park. I was here the last meeting, and I explained to you how impressed I was and how valued I kept our riverfront. Our downtown is the storefront of our city, and we have to be careful what we shine a light on when we put things down there. And the things going on at the Ghostlight Lounge are not something that I want children exposed to. And I know you say they're not exposed, but they're little sponges. They see what we endorse. They see what we approve. They're connected to social media. They see everything. So we're sending a message on how we run our city and how we maintain things at the River Park. And I was just wondering, is the River Park's budget, are the utility bills included in that budget? Because I know the utility bills are astronomical. And our roads in town are in terrible disrepair. And I'm a taxpayer. And I'd rather see my tax dollars going to repair our roads and to subsidize our elected officials and city employees and their retirement and benefits than to host something so horrendous at the drag show that I know it's displeasing to God. And I find it humorous that we begin every council meeting with a prayer and a pledge, holding that God is forefront in everything we do. And he also needs to be forefront in what we do downtown.
Thank you for your
That's all I've got.
comments. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. It's always a joy to. All right, one more comment on the, that's it.
Hi, I'm Rich Jorn, the Executive Director of the River Park Center. I live at 2701 West 9th Street. I want to assure, first of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and the commissioners for their support and support of the First Amendment and supporting the arts and representation for all who pay taxes. I hear what you're saying. I have those concerns. I assure you, there are absolutely no children around when these shows happen. They happen once a month.
Wait a minute now.
I would like to thank the
respectful.
commissioners and city employees who've actually come down to check it out to see what was true. I am available. You can call me. You can send me an email, rjorn@riverparkcenter.org. I'd be happy to discuss what is actually going on with anybody at any time. I'm just here to serve the entire community, and I hate that this is taking the light that is all the great and wonderful things we do at the River Park Center, like the aforementioned Mona to Sleep project we had. So, again, thank you all. Thank you for your time.
Okay. All right. Okay, you guys can take that outside, please, if you don't mind. All right, this is the last comment.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
My name is Andy Gamblin. I live at 2920 Yale Place, at the Roosevelt House. And my heart is heavy tonight. I want to thank the Lord for the pastor, what he said, and for Mr. Chapman. The Lord, he instituted government to not bring evil to the people, but to watch over the people, to make sure nothing come in evil. It's y'all's place to watch over the people. These young kids are at stake. Sometime back, y'all gave tribute to the Davis County cheerleaders for the job that they done, and they done a great job. Y'all need to be watching out for our young people. Right there across from the River Park Center, they can see that garbage. And I'm like the pastor, we do not need it here in Owensboro. I pray that y'all will do the right thing. Now, I remember the last time we was here, there was a city commissioner said that it was hate speech. I want to read something, okay? Please. Bear with me. Just bear with me just for a second. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. That also goes even a little bit further. Jesus died for all of us. At one time, all of us was in sin. But then we came to the knowledge that we were sinners and we had to repent and ask the Lord to save us. The drag queen, the homosexuality, the drug addict, the alcoholic, they're blinded. Satan got them all blinded. It's in our school system now. Thank the Lord we got an awakening. Happened to Asbury College with the young gentleman that repented and asked the Lord to come into him, and because he repented of his sins, because he wanted the Holy Spirit. And it's time we as a Christian stand up for our young people and say no to this garbage that's in our city. Jesus, he does love everybody, but he does not condone sin. He never will condone sin. And you all that says, oh, it's okay, y'all are more trouble because y'all tell them a lie that's saying it's okay to be a drug addict. It's okay to be a drag queen. It's okay to be a homosexual. And it's not. They are blinded. We need to be praying for them that the Lord will break the chains of addiction in the drug addict, the alcoholic.
Thank you, Mr. Gamblin.
One more thing,
Your
and I
time
know
is-
some time back, y'all even voted to expand alcohol. I want to tell you something.
Your time is up, sir.
One more thing, please. I went to a crusade this past summer in Madisonville, Kentucky. Pastor.
Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.